Dow Jones, bear market. Crypto, spiraling down. Even gold is losing value. But where is there still a bull market? Air-cooled 911s, particularly with RS models. We're going to take a look at a couple of them, plus reconciling our bids from the last episode. This is Bid Nerds. The bidding starts now. Nerds! Bid Nerds is your daily YouTube card game show, where we predict the online auction results of the most interesting cars on Bring a Trailer, Cars and Bids, Hagerty Marketplace, and more. It's just like the Price is Right game show. Play along and see if you can beat the nerds. Yep, it's time for a brand new episode of Bid Nerds. You are watching a couple of nerds live. My name is John Polnick. I'm your host, along with my partner, Michael Deeb. I'm coming to you from the Container Park in downtown Las Vegas at the Rami studio. Michael Deeb is coming to you from his studio in San Francisco. How you doing, Michael Deeb? What's happening?
Oh, just one of those days where we limp across the starting block, but yeah, man, it's great to be here. Just you and I, huh? Just like old times.
Yeah, buddy. You got your
throwback Thursday.
You got your Luft shirt on. We're getting excited about air and water. We think we might have a special guest on one of the episodes before air and water. And let me tell you, you guys are going to be excited about that one. That'll be interesting.
Big tease. Oh my God, I know I was getting a lap dance tonight. That is a tease. That is a tease. If they knew what I know, that you know, that what they know, they would go right to the bank and get a lot of singles. That's a big team.
All I got to say is that we will have nothing but air-cooled cars on that particular episode.
Yeah, right. And we're rehearsing that tonight.
Yeah, exactly. What's up, Nerd Herd? You guys are waiting for us. Sorry, we got a couple minutes behind, but look at this. Everybody's here.
Let me tell the audience really quick, JP, the text I got an hour before the show was like, 2 RSs? And I was like, I am in full air and water mode right now. I literally drove my car to Oakland to get my new headlight rings painted the color of my car. And so, yeah, I saw these are both really special cars that these 3 cars that we're going to cover tonight. So I'm glad you acquiesced to my desire to go full air cooled special Rennsport, the whole It's gonna be fun tonight. We have good cars.
Am I picking up what you're dropping? Did you get H4s? Did you ditch the sugar scoops? Look at you.
So I will tell you this. My mechanic wanted to throw them on for me while he was doing everything else to my car. He said, "Do you want me to get you those lights?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "I got them with chrome rings." And I was like, "I don't want chrome rings." And he goes, "Don't worry, they're cheaper with chrome rings." And then he goes, "I have a vinyl guy that'll wrap them for you." So the headlights come in. I said, "Cool, wrap them for me in matte black." And he's like, "No problem." So I go to pick up my car like 3 months later, and I show up. Every piece of black on my car is matte black, and my headlight rings are wrapped in shiny plastic vinyl. They look cheap as S. Like, they look terrible. And I'm just like, So I went and ordered, I called Ben the Professor at Sierra Madre, got paintable headlight rings, which cost me another $100 or whatever. And then I took them over to Alonzo's body shop in Oakland, the guy who touched up my car and did the paint correction. He's great. So he's going to redo one of the stone guards for me. He's going to paint the rings, and I'm going to go body colored and just tone it down a little bit. It's a little too much black on the front of the car with the on a cream car with black headlight rings. It looks like you got 2 black guys. It wasn't. I wasn't feeling it, JP. I like the idea, but I think maybe on a colored car where the black wouldn't stand out so much. It was too much contrast. So I'm just going to go painted. I got new sun visors. I mean, we could go on and on and on, but I'm spending money on the car. So
well,
it's cool.
we can't wait to see it. It's going to be at Air and Water. We're going to see all our friends down there in Costa Mesa. Look at that. You got a chiffon sweater and everything.
Yep.
You always like to match cars with your hoodies. You had the bright yellow one for that piece of junk Diablo that apparently you must have bought. You're not telling us. I see what's going on here.
That's exactly right.
All right, well, let's get going here. Shout out to the Nerd Herd. We got a bunch of people hanging out already. Of course, good friend Chris Carbine is here. We got Zach Miller is back. Gerd, who was on the last episode, he's hanging out in the chat. So if you're watching the show and you're not in the chat, get in there and say hello to the Nerd Herd. Maximilian, welcome to the Nerd Herd. Good to see you. Max is a local guy. Used to run a really good car show in town called Sunday Show Off. That was always,
where was that?
That was always the week after Cars and Cafe. It was up in the north end, but they stopped doing it. So maybe they need to bring it back. Randy's here, Kevin's here, Buddha's here. Look, Lee is hanging out too. Good,
what's up, Lee? What's up? Hey, what was Solomon's show called?
Well, Solomon did Cars and Coffee. He was the only person who did the official Cars and Coffee TM. Like he paid for the license to do Cars and Coffee, and then that whole thing got ruined. But we're not going to talk about all that stuff yet.
Oh, okay, all right. Never mind.
Yeah, we'll move on to that stuff. Shout out to our good friends at Godden Porsche and Godden Classic of Las Vegas. They are our sponsors of the show. What would happen if it wasn't for those guys? We love them, and let me tell you, they are the place if you need classic Porsche parts or Porsche Classic DM parts. Give them a call over there. Or if you even need a classic Porsche, they always have great stuff. I know they've got some cool stuff coming in this week, so check them out. And also, if you're like going, man, Bid Nerds, we're a little late today, what the hell, what's going on? And it's probably because I need to get my watch serviced at Our Smiths, Fine Swiss Watch Repair at Our Smiths. Is Anthony in the chat yet? Is he showed up?
I don't see him.
No, he's out doing
busy.
better things.
He's busy working on your 9 Rolexes, JP.
I think that's what it is. Yeah, I sent him all my watches. All right, guys. Welcome to the show. If you are new, what we do here is we play The Price is Right with cars on BAT, Cars and Bids, P-Car Market, Haggerty Marketplace, and more. That is what we do, is we talk about the listings, and then we analyze the car and the listing. And then we make a prediction of what we think that car's listing will hammer at. And, we always start the episode by reconciling our predictions from the last episode. And usually I say we always get it wrong, but this week we might have a record. It's pretty amazing what we did. Last week we actually got this ish right somehow. So let's get to the predictions from last week. Michael D., what do we got on the list?
Before we go on, JP, I have to confess that moment right there where you said we reconcile, it's the first time I realized that the root word for reconcile is wreck. And man, do we wreck some guesses on this show?
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah, they are guesses. What do we know? We don't know right?
Without further ado, the first car on our list from last week was selected for us by our really good friend Yuri Sinakis of San Francisco. Yuri owns a Euro Carrera, an early 70s Euro Carrera, very similar to the one that he picked for us that was on BAT last week. This is a rest of the world 1974 Porsche 911 Carrera. The difference here is the 2.7 liter in the Euro Carrera has the MFI system and a hotter cam and better compression ratio. These cars rev higher than the US counterparts, and they make about, oh my God, like 45 horsepower more than the US cars. This particular car has incredible provenance, having been delivered to a member of the royal family of like Dubai or something. He was going to university in Germany and picked this car up from the factory in Stuttgart back in 1974, which is the reason why this car does not have a rear wing. Rear wings were illegal in Germany in 1974 for whatever reason. We want to get into that. But this car is beautiful, did not trade hands and go into sort of public ownership until the mid-'80s in the UK, after having spent time in a couple of different European countries and at one point going back to Dubai. The car was brought stateside by a person I know named Jack Molinar, and then the car has traded hands, having spent several years in inventory at Godden. This car traded hands several times in the U.S., has sold at auction once or twice, and is now come up on auction on BAT as a premium listing out of Beverly Hills, California. The gentleman who bought it disclosed that he paid $265 for it, or $260, spent 10 grand on it, and has said he's in it $270,000. He's running it at no reserve, which is very interesting, JP. So I thought that this car would make him a couple of bucks. I said $285, but I didn't think it would bring $300 because this car has been for sale in the United States almost all of its life. It's very rarely been owned and out of the public eye since being imported, 10 years ago. John, you took the under at 260, which was a really good guess, as it turns out. And then Wade took 265 just above you, and Gerd took 280 just below me. Randy said 249. Anthony said 294. Chris Carbine said 284 911. Carbine, that cuteness is going to cost you, and you'll see here in a minute. Gerd was at 280, which we got Kevin at 260 and Ross at 267. All very good guesses. Nobody thought this car would go over 300, JP, which is interesting. Our car sold, remember, no reserve, for $265,000 on 32 bids. Wade got a Yahtzee, but I'm sorry, Wade, you must be present to win. I'll give the Yahtzee to JP because he was the next closest, or we could give it to Chris Carbine, who missed it by, help me with the math here, $89, JP? Did he miss a Yahtzee by $89 so he could have the cute bid? But no, Wade got this one right on the money. Good job, Wade. John, it's interesting. These cars are kind of soft in the market. There was a time when European Carreras brought $400,000 if they were nice. And now they're struggling. This is about as nice a one as you could get, and it's struggling to get to $300,000. Yet we're seeing U.S. Carreras, which aren't nearly the car that these are. I would argue that an SC for half the price of a U.S. Carrera would be a better car. But U.S. Carreras are still bringing like between 100 to 130, and restored ones, or all original ones, are touching $150,000. It's interesting how for a minute you could have got a U.S. Carrera for 60 or a Euro Carrera for 400, and now the U.S. Carrera is maybe greater than half the price of the Euro Carrera. So this, I don't know, it's a head scratcher to me. I would think that these cars, in light of the cars that we're going to cover, would be strong. Technically this car has an RS motor in it, and yet it's not really bringing the money. Help me read the tea leaves, JP. What are you seeing?
Well, I mean, I don't know. So this one in particular, we talked about it on the last episode. It changed a lot of hands recently. And Wade brought up, Wade being the guy that nailed it, was still, pretty soft on it. I mean, he was basically saying, hey, this car has provenance because it had this, prince from the Middle East somewhere that owned the car. Yeah. But my point was that, well, yeah, okay, but then since then this car hasn't been loved. And I think for cars to get really premium, they either have to be super, super, super blue chip and just like, has to be an actual RS, or it's got to have the provenance and be a currently loved car. When a car gets sold once, twice, 5 times in the last in as many years, I think the shine comes off of a car and people start going, well, why is this thing getting passed around? Why doesn't someone just love this thing? And I think it starts to hurt it. I also think that honestly, it's as silly as it is without the ducktail. It just doesn't look that special, and it doesn't attract the people that want to spend $400,000 or $300,000 and better. I still think 260 something is pretty damn good for this car. This is still a lot of money for a car that's great, but is it really that great? I mean, at $300,000, you start getting a lot of options, and frankly, options for cars that I think are way better than this car. The cars that would be on the list way higher than this one. So I don't know. I think the collectors, did you say it on the last episode? The collectors that have one of these already have one?
I don't think I said that, but that might have been somebody's take, and that's a good take. That's true. I think that's a fair thing to say. But at 265, I think you start attracting people to come up, stretch their budget a little bit, and get a car that, because these cars have traded for 400 before, like when the tide is out, or when the buy in the dip. This is sort of the dip. Now listen, when this car was in inventory at Gaudin, this car was barely worth 200 to 220. And I actually think since it was inventory at Gaudin and right now, it probably went up over 300 grand. In fact, it did sell for 305 at one point. Although I think that was earlier in its history. We're getting very confused here, but the values on these have fluctuated tremendously between 200 and 400 over the last 10 years, and several times at those numbers. So it's really interesting. At 265, I will say it was well bought.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't see this car getting much more than that for a long time. I mean, even if the market changes, I just don't think I could see Euro Carreras going up. I don't
Yep.
see this one going up. This car is going
Wow.
to have to be owned for a long time by someone. It's going to have to
Fair.
get some notoriety somehow. It's going to have to get, like, someone famous is going to have to buy it and drive it around or something like that. But I think this one, we talked about on the last episode, we went back and forth over and over again on whether or not that stupid Lambo with a terrible wrap was burned. And we probably spent too much time on it. I think in a lot of ways, this car is burned. I think this guy that bought it, hope he loves it, because I think he stuck with it for a while. If he didn't buy it to love it and he bought it because he thought, oh, I'm buying the dip, I'm going to be able to sell this and make money in a year or 6 months or 18 months or whatever, I don't think that's going to happen. I think this car is going to just kind of be flat for a while. What do you guys think of the results of this beautiful but unloved 74 911 Euro Carrera? Is 260 something a good number for this car? Was that well bought? Like my partner says, does this car have a real big upside soon? Will someone be able to profit on that? Or are you like me and think, you know what? I hope that the person that bought this car loves it and enjoys it and goes out and actually drives the thing. I think that's what this car needs. It's time for someone to just drive this car and bring it to Cars and Cafe and Luftkult and all those fun places. We hope we see it on the road. Let us know in the comments below. And Michael Deeb, let's move to the next car. What do we got?
All right, JP. This is a 2023 Aston Martin Vantage Coupe, and this is the F1 edition. Aston Martin has a partnership with Mercedes-Benz to supply motors. Mercedes-Benz has a stranglehold on the pace car. How do you say it? The pace car contract for Formula One, but they are sharing that contract with Aston Martin as part of their dynamic partnership. And occasionally Aston Martin gets to be the pace car in an F1 race, and they bring a Vantage Coupe with all the accoutrements. Like it looks like a GT3 with canards and rockers and bigger wheels and stickier tires. And our car has even a little more horsepower than a stock one. Our particular car is in Virginia Beach, Virginia, showing 1,300 miles. The car is on Bring a Trailer, of course. All of the F1 editions are Aston Martin's really unique racing green colorway. And of course, they come with all those things I mentioned, all the aero things and some graphics and stuff like that. I said on the show when we covered this car, I thought a few years ago Aston Martin was making the prettiest cars in the world, but I don't believe that anymore. I don't know what has changed, but these cars are starting to look cartoonish. I think they're appealing to a younger, more nouveau riche buyer today, and they don't do it to me. Astons used to exude luxury and class and sophistication, and now they exude crypto bro and new money. And anyway, I'm not into it. So our car is low miles. It was big money when it was new. I thought the car would bring $165,000. JP, you picked the car, and then you took the under by 15 grand at just $150,000. And Wade, who's young and I thought would be super into this car, he turned out to be the low man at $130,000. And Gerd gave us a very good bid at $145,000. Looks like in the comments, Randy was at 140. Good bid. Anthony, 156. Chris Carbine at 138.9. Carbine is really, what would you say, bearish on this one. Gerd at 145. Kevin at 135. I love how Gerd comes on the show, but Randy still calculates his bid like I wasn't going to keep track of it. Thank you, Randy, for covering my work. And Ross at $123,000. Tell Gerd to keep track of his own bids from now on. All right, here we go. JP, our car sold only 13 bids. Not a lot of action, not a lot of love for this car. $150,000. Buddy, you got yourself a nice, big, fat Yahtzee. Tell us why you know so much about these cars. I think, along with most of the collective conscience of the nerd herd, when you select a car and you get a Yahtzee, JP, I feel like the fix is in. I'm going to have to put an asterisk next to your Yahtzee and say that, maybe you knew what was going to happen before it happened. Tell us why you know so much about Aston Martins with Mercedes engines and F1 provenance.
I called Nancy Pelosi for the inside scoop. I
There
got a
you
little
go,
insider
yeah.
trading there going on.
Yeah.
No, it's funny that I got I remember when I made the bid on the last episode, and then the nerd herd came in, and everyone was like, even low. I thought I was kind of going low, but then everyone, Ross is at $123 as low as. I'm just like, oh, geez, maybe I'm going to be high here. So I'm as surprised as anyone to get a Yahtzee on this thing, but I'm not surprised that the car didn't bring much money because, frankly, Aston Martins are just the worst car investments you can make, and I love them. I actually really I even like, we're poo-pooing the car with all the whiz-bang stuff on it. I don't actually hate the way this car looks. I actually think it's kind of neat, and I would drive one. I wouldn't be embarrassed to drive it like a lot of other cars, but it certainly I would never put money down on one of these unless it was absolutely given to me, because let's face it, this person that bought it brand new, how much was this thing brand new?
200, up over 200. And he got 1,300 miles. If I had my calculator, I have to talk to you through my phone.
Yeah.
But if I had my calculator, I would do the math on $50,000 divided by 1,300 miles. That's a lot of dollars per mile, JP.
Well, not only that, you got to figure too that it's like, okay, this is a 2023 model, which means it was on the floor wherever it was sold. It was probably sometime in 2022. The dealer was probably charging a big old fat fee on top of it. This car was probably bought for $250,000 if the list was $200,000. I mean, this is the kind of car that people were paying over for, like GT3s and everything else that was special there for a while.
I don't know if Aston has that kind of rep. I know Lamborghini's there, Ferrari's been there, Porsche's there.
The special, I know someone who bought one of these that did that.
All right. Well, then
they had
on.
to convert. Yeah. So, again, maybe not the regular models, but certainly the F1s and stuff like that. Everything that had any kind of special anything, in that like couple year little window there was. Dealers were charging all the money because they could, and people were paying it. Yeah. So, this person who bought this car, we know lost at least $50,000, may likely have lost $100,000 in a year on one car. I mean, at that point, do you just be like, forget it? I'm just going to keep it and drive it forever and wait for, 30 years for this thing to be worth $200,000 again? Or, I mean, it's just like, that hurts. That hurts, even if you have the kind of money that someone would have to buy one of these brand new anyway. They're probably not even. They don't even care. They probably already have a new one that they paid $50,000 over for. What do you think? Let us know what you guys think of this Aston Martin Vantage. Was this thing well bought? Was this thing well sold? What do you think of that person who lost $100,000 in a year and hardly drove the car at all? I can't wait to see the comments on this one. The nerd herd right now, they're like cringe. Kevin thinks it's funny. He's like, ha ha. That's brutal, man. That's harsh. That's just mean,
but
man.
It's true.
That's true.
You just think, but if the guy's buying and selling cars of this caliber, you would just hang it out there as trade bait to get yourself like, oh, I want a GT3 RS. Well, I've got 20 people on the list. So, well, I'll give you my Aston Martin coupe to consign, and you guys can sell it to one of the guys that can't get a GT3 RS, sell it to one of them as a consolation prize, and make 10 or 15 grand, and that moves you ahead on the list. I mean, you gotta learn how to use your assets to your advantage, and I feel like this guy didn't. Dumping it for 150 when he likely, as JP said, paid 225 to 250 for this car. I think that's a mistake. If you're not going to get at least sticker back on the car. I think you sold it too short. I think you should have dangled it to somebody who specializes in these types of cars. And it might not be the Aston Martin dealer, but it sure as hell might be your Porsche dealer or your Ferrari dealer or your Lamborghini dealer.
Yeah, or one of those dealers that has all that stuff. The same guy that has the wrapped Lambos and stuff like that. They probably this is definitely somebody who wants to walk in and have a cute little girl in a skirt, hand them overpriced fancy water and that kind of stuff.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's move on and shout out. Looks like David Van is back. Welcome back. Sounds like he had a little girl. Congratulations. That's pretty darn awesome. The nerd herd's just awesome, man. It's good peeps in the nerd herd. Nerd Herd. I want to just hang out in the Nerd Herd. I think somebody else should do the show, and I just want to hang out and watch, and hang out with you guys and be like Anthony, who's finally here drinking beer after I guess he was at soccer practice being the coach or whatever. So 9-year-old kids kicking him in the shins. He needs a drink.
Not to bring up old shit, JP, but don't you remember we can't do the show without you?
Right. Yeah. Somebody's got to hit these stupid buttons. All right. What other car did we make a prediction on the last episode? This one was interesting. All right. That's for sure.
JP, sometimes the pendulum swings in a completely different direction. And it did here on our show the other day when you selected for us in the shadow of the Aston Martin Vantage F1 edition. JP brings you this 2023 Fisker Ocean Extreme. Aside from having 4 tires and being a 2023, this car shares absolutely nothing in common with the last car we covered. On Cars and Bids, this EV is from a company that we thought was still at the bottom of the ocean. Perhaps this Fisker Ocean is where the company is headed. Showing 700 miles. And out of La Jolla, California, our car, somebody paid $60,000 plus for our car just a few months ago. And they have decided to get off of it. And they brought it to the correct platform, to Cars and Bids, Doug DeMiro's platform, where in all likelihood, he'll get the most return on his invested capital. So, JP, I started the bidding at $41,000. And I have to confess, when I saw the car and looked at it, I wrote in my notes $51,000. And as we covered the car and then I gave you my bid, I changed my bid by 10 grand down to 41. You took the under at $35,000. And then Wade bid over me at $44,000. And Gerd took $39,500 as his bid. Do we have Randy? Yeah. So Randy gave us on the Fisker $42,000 for himself. Chris Carbine at 66. Chris, man, you know how bad EVs are selling. I'm surprised by that. He's way high on that one. Gerd at 39.5. Kevin at 40. Ross at 43. JP, this is one of those where you just let me give you the result and then we can talk about this. Our car sold for under everybody's bid at just $31,750 on 22 bids. So there's a lot to unpack with that number. One, this guy either set a reserve solo or pulled the reserve in the closing day or hours of his bid, of his auction, to ensure that it's sold. Two, how bad an automobile do you have to have that you spent whatever X amount of dollars that in less than a year, you would sell it for 50 cents on the dollar? And three, what does this say about this particular, not only the model, but the brand at large? Like if Fisker's trying to come back into business and people are dumping their cars in a couple of months for 50 cents on the dollar, I mean, talk about the writing on the wall, JP. This result shocked even me. This, I would argue, John, is more extreme and more shocking than the supercar depreciation we just saw on that Aston Martin Vantage Coupe, which arguably lost 100 grand, but still brought 150. So it lost 40% of its value. But this thing lost 55 plus of its value. You know, if you include tax and license and whatever else he threw at it to buy. I mean, unless this guy got the car with like 20 grand in trunk money and he only paid 40 for it, which I don't think is the case. I think Wade would have known about that if that were the case. I think this guy, you know, there's a guy somewhere in La Jolla running around with no pants on because he lost his shorts on this car. So, John, I give you all of those points. Which one do you want to start with? I mean, were you shocked by that result? Did you just go,
yeah, even I was like, yikes. Whoa. Yeah, I mean, from a dollar for dollar standpoint, this was definitely a worse investment than the Aston, which is saying something. At least you kind of look cool in the Aston. Right. This car is like you look in your refrigerator and you're like, oh, look, a bucket of cottage cheese. And like the expiration date was a week ago, right? Yep. This thing, it already nobody wants it. but you're like, you smell it, you're like, it still might be okay. And you're like, honey, you want some cottage cheese? Here, it's like the old George Carlin joke. I don't know if you remember it, but it was like, eat this before I give it to an animal. It's has anybody ever offered you food that if you don't eat it, they're only going to throw it away? It's like, hurry up, it's spoiling. I mean, it's like, you just don't want this thing anywhere near you. It's, boy. And kudos to the seller. Honestly, the cojones to sit there and go, accept, okay, I'll take that. Most guys would be like, no, it's good. Just fine. Dang it. No, I'm going to get more for it. Stomp your feet and most people just can't accept that kind of loss, and they'll just go further and further down the toilet bowl. This guy was like, I don't want to see what's down there. I'm just getting out now. It's fine up here at the surface.
You dusted off the old cottage cheese analogy, and I'll give you the Days of Thunder when he sticks himself with the knife because he thinks his legs don't work, and they're like, rip it out. And it's like all the guys are trying to pull the fork or the knife out of Will Ferrell's leg. That's just like this guy in the closing hours of the auction is just like, get it out, just get it out of my driveway.
Yeah. I'll stop the bleeding. I mean, that is the first rule, right? When you are triaging someone or a bunch of injuries, you got to just stop the bleeding. First, stop the bleeding. If you keep this car, you are not stopping the bleeding. Just cut and run. So again, kudos to the seller. The Nerd Herd is totally with us. They're like, geez, Louise, this is rough. Here's the question. Do we think Fisker will be in business? Like, what's the over under? That's the next, like, how many months will it be? Because I don't think we're even talking about years. Does anyone think that Fisker will be around in a year?
I'll give you 15 months, and that's being generous. I mean, this is JP. This is public, right? Like, they had two other sales where people who got offered sticker price for their car, the two previous results on cars and bids, and they turned down 60 and 61 respectively, which would have made them whole again. Now a guy has a car and hangs onto it for a few months, puts 700 miles on it, and he's taking 50 cents on the dollar, and he's accepting that money. I mean, and this is happening publicly. This is a marketing train wreck. This is a disaster. This is, for Fisker, this is like a plane crash. Like, and you lost all your passengers. You know what I mean? Like, holy God, this is a disaster unfolding right before our eyes. I'm really glad you picked this car because I might not have been aware of the ish show that is going on here with the Fisker brand.
What about that guy that doesn't have $30,000 and has this? I mean, I can think of a lot of things I'd rather have than this car. I mean, a bucket of cream cheese, I don't know, toilet paper for a couple of years. I mean, $30,000. Yeah, exactly. Look, okay, I'll say this. I kind of talked about it in the last episode, and, I mention it every time we talk about EVs. I do think that the EVs are not... I am not as bearish on EVs as everyone else seems like in the Nerd Herd and people are in general. I think that's looking at your toes, honestly. I don't really want an EV. I don't really like them. I'll admit I do like the Cybertruck. I almost got hit by one walking out of here at the end of the last episode when Gerd and I were walking across the street. One came flying out. It was pretty awesome, though. But no, here's the thing. It's like...
JP's like, you'll never guess what happened to me, Rochelle. I got hit by a car, but it's cool. It was a Cybertruck, and somebody was filming it.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to go, right, how good a way are you going to go? Look, there are things going on. Ferrari. There are things going on in the news right now we won't get into, but it's very realistically, the real possibility that Monday morning, that's just a few days away, or even tomorrow, frankly, things could be happening right now that would cause gas or gasoline prices to go up to $10 a gallon, $15 a gallon. Oof. That is not something that is out of the realm of possibility. If the Strait of Hormuz is closed for some reason, that ish is happening. All right. And that, I don't want it to. I'm not saying it's gonna. I'm not trying to say the sky is falling, but there between now and whenever, they call it the next 2 months, 6 months, a year, there are so many things going on that could cause gas prices to spike like crazy. We have right now, everyone's talking about how gas prices are kind of high. Frankly, gas prices are still low. If you factor in real gas prices, the highest gas prices ever were was back in like 2000, I want to say 9 or 10, when they got up to like high fives. $5.50. Yes, I know everyone in the comments, oh, the gas is $5.50, right? It's like, no. Back in 2010, you could get a Subway sandwich for $5. Okay. Yeah. For gas to be the same price as it was in 2010 at $5.50 a gallon, it would have to be $15 a gallon now to be basically in real dollars. So adjusted for inflation, to get that high, we need to. So that's very possible. I mean, inflation on everything else is shot up. So why the hell wouldn't energy prices? Right. That happens, everyone's clamoring for EVs again. I guarantee you the EV companies, that's the only thing that Fisker's probably sitting there going, oh yeah, war in the Middle East? Hell yeah, let's have that happen. I mean, or something. I mean, they're the ones. All the EV companies are the one, and Ford and all the companies that have spent all this money on EV. Cars, and how many EVs are sitting in the back lot at Mercedes lots that they can't sell. That could change in a second, and then all of a sudden everyone's gonna be running out and trying to get them. So I don't know. Is now the time? Talking about buy the dip. Is now the time to fill a lot full of EVs and Teslas and stuff? I don't know.
Speculate.
Yeah.
Somebody said inflation sucks, and Mike Buddha said my liver can't handle this. JP's going off.
We love our drinking games on the Bid Nerds. All right, pour yourself a real tall one. We're gonna take a quick break and pour one for ourselves.
One more point. I just want to point out that nobody got a Yahtzee on that one.
Yeah, right. That would have been
for this week. Yeah. That's the weird one. The weird one that nobody got a Yahtzee, not the weird one that somebody got a Yahtzee. The weird one that nobody got a Yahtzee. All right, I'm done. You're all
right, guys. Give us the thumbs up, and we're gonna be back in just a second with brand new predictions. Hey guys, I gotta tell you about our friends Godden Porsche of Las Vegas and Godden Classic. If you're looking for a new Porsche or a classic, you gotta call our friend Steve at Godden, this guy. Save yourself the hassle of screwing around with all the auctions like we always talk about, and just talk to Steve. He'll find you the classic Porsche you're looking for. Godden Porsche of Las Vegas. Hey guys, you're probably looking at your watch and wondering if Bid Nerds will ever end. So you better talk to our friends at Our Smiths to make sure your Rolex, Tag Heuer, AP, or any fine timepiece is in tip-top shape. Our Smiths, fine Swiss repair. I need to go back to drinking while we do this show. Where is the liquor? Oh, it's over there. I can't reach any of the liquor bottles. That is poor planning on my part. Welcome back, guys. Thanks for hanging around. Bid Nerd Herd, we love you guys. Let's get to some new predictions. What do we got on the list tonight? You know what? We opened up the show. I haven't, I'm breaking all the YouTube rules right now. Open up the show talking about how we're going to talk about RSs. And is there a bull market on RSs? So if you saw the beginning of the show and you waited around this long to get us to answer that question, thanks. Sorry it took so long, but you can skip ahead if you're watching this later. So I mean, I think look, there's a lot going on in the market, and we're seeing stuff go up and down all over the place. But now's the time to talk about these 911 RSs. There's a lot of different versions of those, and we've got a couple tonight. What's the first one on the list that we can kind of get to this question?
All right, JP, I'm happy you let me keep this car despite the terrible photography. I mean, look at that opening shot of this car. What we're going to bring you, everyone, is a 1993 Porsche 911 RS America. Our car is located in Boca Raton, Florida. Boca Raton, Florida? Thank you.
That's a Chris Carbine question if I ever heard one.
Yeah, seriously. And our car is on Bring a Trailer. The big news here, obviously, RS Americas, they only made 700-800 of these things. They made them for 1 year, and they made a handful in 1994 as well. But RS Americas only came with 4 options, and the ones that bring the big money, JP, are the cars that were ordered without a sunroof. Because no other 964 was offered without a sunroof. So getting one without and getting a slick top, higher, what do you call it? The headliner goes up a little bit higher, giving more room, more headroom to taller drivers. And then a little more structural rigidity, lower center of gravity. There's all these little tiny benefits that add up to making a more fun driving experience. Our particular car shows just 36,000 miles, and is equipped with, I think, I think it was limited slip and air conditioning, and has no factory radio and no sunroof. Although I think there's an aftermarket stereo in this car with some very ugly square speakers in the door. JP, the more time I spend with you, the more time I sort of unleash my, I don't know what you would call it, but like inner judge on aesthetic. And when you look at all the beautiful round gauges, you look at the round door pulls and the round window and mirror adjusters and the round steering wheel and the round shift knob, how on earth do you put square speakers in a Porsche? It is like you mother idiots. But anyway, nice car. Guards red, black interior, cloth seats look to be in excellent condition. The front end of this car is nice. It really does look like a nice example. JP, when we get a good clear photo under the car and I see a lot of factory cosmoline still underneath the engine, the gearbox, and the suspension components, I really think that this winds up being a good original car. This car, to me, despite my disdain for red Porsches, I really like this one. If I were hunting one, I would go after this car, and I would go after it something fierce. I think this is a good one. It's got low miles. It's got the right options. I think you could fix the doors and the speakers and enjoy the car. They're great driving cars. I've had one before. You did a video on it, and you know, we both love 964s. I mean, you had a brush with a 964 before they went crazy in value, and you still, to this day, when we're out there in the middle of nowhere and we're talking about how cool cars are, you often bring up that 964 you almost bought, and I know that's like one of, on your short list of ones that got away, that's near the top. So JP, I send this over to you. Collectible miles, collectible condition. The Cosmoline really seals it for me as a good one, despite it being in Florida. I like this car, JP. You know, we're going to be pushing right up against $200,000. I think it's a stretch to say that it would reach 200 to go over, but I think that's like the fun watermark to see, is this going to be in a softer market, a $200,000 RS America? I send it to you, John. What are your thoughts on the one that I selected here? What do you think about this one?
Did you say this one has LSD or not? Okay, I'm sorry. I missed that.
I'll read it to you right now because the window sticker is present, and I'm going to give it to you. Two seconds.
There's only four options, right? The sunroof,
right.
the air conditioning, stereo, and LSD.
Yep. And hold on.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just tell my quick story while you're looking. I had a chance to buy one of these for $30,000, you know, back in like 2010, and I passed on it and bought a 993 instead. Dumbass. And I've been kicking myself ever since. These are one of the best driving cars of all time. You just I don't mind the red. I actually think this car looks really, really good in red, Guards red. I am fine with this color. I don't know if there's any color I would really pass up, you know, that I would say, right, oh, I don't want the car because of the color. But yeah, I mean, I just wouldn't care when it comes to getting a chance to get an RSA. It comes down to condition and everything at that point.
Yeah, AC and locking diff. So it's got the limited slip diff. Yep. Just those two. Those are the
option
only two
220
options on the car. Yep, there you go.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. No. How bad do you miss yours?
Oh, so it's funny, JP. For those that are new watching the show, I lent my car to a friend of mine who lost control of it on Angel's Crest up in the mountains, and the car rolled off a cliff. And to our massive release, our friend was unhurt, which is a miracle because the car rolled about 6 times. And JP and I stayed for a couple hours and watched Caltrans send a guy down the mountain with 150 feet of cable to secure the RS America that was complete wreck and write off, and bring it back up the mountain. And for the first 3 years, JP, I was only happy that my friend was unhurt. And that was the only thing that mattered to me. And for the last 3 years, I am furious that that guy crashed my car. And I miss my RS America like more and more each day. And that's probably why I picked this car. This might be the first one that's come along since my car got wrecked that I think is really close to my car in condition and, being preserved as an all original car with decent paint meter readings and a lot of cosmoline underneath. This car is as original and arguably as nice. Although I do think one or two panels on this have been repainted, but not enough to turn me off. This is a car I would like to go after. And it's ironic, JP, because this car might go for almost twice as much as what I paid for my car initially. Look at that footage you got. So John and I were on a drive in Los Angeles for the March grand opening of the Porsche season, which is centered around the Toy and Literature Show out in LA. And so John and I went on a big fun drive on Friday morning, and John had a bag in his car with his drone. And as we waited for Caltrans to show up and pull my car off the bottom of the mountain, JP threw up his drone and took that unbelievable footage of them pulling my car off the cliff. And it's amazing. My friend got out of the car, climbed back up the mountain, and within the hour was saying to me, that car saved my life, because he couldn't believe he didn't die when the car started to roll down the mountain. So unbelievable stuff. Cool stuff, JP. You should have gotten an award for that footage. It's really something special.
So what? Yeah, just to be clear, folks, we're not talking about if you just chimed in and you saw that RSA being pulled out of the canyon, this red car is not that car restored. These are two separate cars, just to be 100% clear. But I do think you're right. I do think, it looked like there was a little overspray on the one door handle there. It's something seems a little weird on this car, and I think that's going to hurt it. Because I think this is the type of car that people are going to pour over on the photos here. Again, I'm not knocking the car. This still, even if it had a little bit of if it was a repaint. Yeah, I mean, look at that. What is going on with that? With the paint around. There's some little things that I have questions. I guess this car needs some answers, and we didn't really pour into this.
No, we didn't.
We're just kind of like looking at the listing,
covering it on the surface. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So JP, our car is doing really well. It closes tomorrow. It's currently at $121,000 on just where'd it go? Here we go. 10 bids. But we oftentimes see Porsches bring twice as much. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think this car is going to break 200. In fact, I'm going to be pretty far under that at $179,000. And I think that's what I like about this one. It's pretty low miles. And I think if this were a low mileage car in a different color with perfect paint meter readings and all that cosmoline, I do think this would be a $200,000 example. But I think that it's guards red. I actually think that kind of holds it back just a little bit. If it were any of the other colors, it would feel more special, particularly that dark blue. But white or silver or black, I think, would bring more money. Perfect paint would bring more money. And then I think we'd be staring 200 grand right in the face. But this one in red and some repaint on 2 or 3 panels, I'll give you 179,000 JP, where I think it will still sell. And if this guy's owned the car for 5 or 6 years, he's still going to make out like a bandit on it. But we don't know that. We're just speculating. So John, where are you at? Where's your bid?
What was your number?
179.
179 stuff. Yeah, that no option code sticker under the hood is always something that freaks me out.
JP's on it.
A little bit. But yeah, some weird questions that need to be answered are going to hold it back. Gosh darn it, you just said how much you were bringing it. 159 or 179?
179.
Yeah,
21
so
under the 200,000 mark. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to go 179.64 and say it sells. I think that would be a good buy on this car, and I'm with you on the color thing. I'm not totally with you on the color thing. I don't think red's going to hold it back. I think if it's red, white, black, or silver, they're all pretty much the same. The blue one is the one that would bring more money, which to me is just goofy because that's the only color I wouldn't want. Even though, again, I would take any color. But I would just be like, that would always bug the hell out of me having the stupid blue one. But red, red's 911 color just makes, this is such a classic 911. This is such a iconic 911. It kind of deserves to be red. Love those seats. Someone was saying in the chat that they have a pair of these. I wonder if that means they're for sale. I want them. I would put those in my current 964, and that would be pretty darn badass.
Oh,
Chris
Carbine.
said,
Yeah,
Chris Carbine
Carbine's
says,
had him for a while since we met him. He's been
no,
trying
someone
to pawn
else.
those.
It was someone else said they had him. Was it?
No, it's Chris
I
Carbine.
know he's
I have
saying
a
he
set of,
has them, but someone
oh,
else
oh.
in the comments said it like a little while ago too. So 2 of the nerd herd have an extra set of RS seats. How is that even possible? I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever. What do you guys think this thing will bring? Let us know in the comments below. Is it a bear market for RSAs, or is this thing going to go like a raging bull and going to break 200,000? We will know in just a couple of days, and let's move on to the next car. What do we got, Michael Deeb?
All right, JP. I selected for us also a 1998 Acura NSX-T with a 6-speed manual showing just 37,000 miles out of Oceanside, California. Our car is on Bring a Trailer and looks spectacular in this bright yellow, I want to say spa yellow pearl with the onyx black leather interior. JP, this is an attractive car. Now, I sort of know my NSXs, but I don't know them like we know Porsches, to be honest. I think 1996 was the first year they went to the 6-speed manual. And then, the Targas got the 3.2 liter motor. Whereas I think the non-Targas, and again, I might be screwing this all up, were still 3 liters. I think that's how it worked. But this is a 3.2. It's a Targa top. It's a 6-speed. It's got, I think, the 16-inch front, the 17-inch rear. I love the yellow and the black, the all-black interior, and it's low miles. I mean, JP, these cars bring big money today, and this one looks like it sort of ticks all the boxes of what you might be looking for.
Hold on, Deep. Hold on.
Yep.
Hold on. I got to break in because there's breaking news.
Yes.
We have breaking news on the show here. Chris Carbine just sent me a photo in the text. And this is very interesting because I think, given stand by here, let's we have to go back to the RSA.
Okay.
Because check this out. Boom. Can you see that?
Yes.
Apparently. So this is Chris Carbine found on classic.com. He found that exact RS, the 964 RS on PCAR Market. It didn't sell at $155.
What's the date on that?
In October of 23. So about 6 months ago, this car was listed for sale, and PCAR Market failed to sell it. Shocker. Look, there it is. Can you guys see that? Yeah. So, got to hand it to the nerd herd. They're out there sleuthing away. Our numbers were high, but I still kind of stand by those numbers. I think it makes sense. Because we are talking about BAT versus PCAR Market, and this car does kind of belong on PCAR Market because it's not the perfect RSA. But now it's spring and people are in Porsche mode, so this will be a good test to see if the sellers should have taken the 155 back then, or if it was worth waiting 6 months and relisting it on a better platform. Let us know what you guys think.
You just touched on my point, JP, or my question to you is at about 6 months, right? So it's April, and you said it was October that it was there?
Yeah.
So that's 6 months. So my question to you is 6 months the right amount of time to move to a different platform? If you have the time to wait, is that the right time where your result winds up being in a completely different season and maybe doesn't count against you as your own worst comp? Do you think he waited enough time? I kind of think he did, but that's my opinion. And I think I'm curious to know what your opinion is on that.
I agree that 6 months is a good amount of time, but I don't think because I'm sure you would agree with me that not all platforms are created equal, right? PCAR Market is definitely not the same platform as Bring a Trailer.
That's not even subjective. That's a fact.
Right, that is a fact, right? So that said, it depends on which platform failed. And if you failed on PCAR Market, get it on BAT as soon as you can, because PCAR Market has at best a tenth of the audience that Bring a Trailer has. So if you put a car on P-Car Market and it fails to sell, that car was exposed to 90% fewer people, right? So get it over on BAT as quickly as you can, and you have a whole, 10 times more people looking at it that never saw it in the first place. So you get another crack at the apple. Other way around, not so much. You fail on BAT and immediately go to P-Car Market, you're just asking for failure. We've seen that. I mean, we keep bringing up the stupid rainbow Lambo, and that's exactly what they did. They failed to sell on BAT and thought they were going to do better on P-Car Market a day later, and that was just a bad move. I mean, that was just about as boneheaded as you. The only thing dumber than that was not taking the wrap off. All right, so all that said, it'll be interesting. That gives us more information to bring up when we bring up the car,
reconcile.
We reconcile on the next episode. Good job, Chris. Thanks for finding that for us. The Nerd Herd brings it. All right, let's get back to this NSX, and thanks for letting me bring in that breaking news. We need like a little breaking news. We need a breaking news. Little thingy.
That old cartoon thing, where the little transistor radios giving off the waves, radio waves.
If anyone younger than 50 was actually watching this, they'd be like, what are they talking about? But luckily, it's all a bunch of old guys like us watching, so they all know. All right, let's get back to this really pretty NSX. What do we got?
Yeah, so mid-mounted 3.2 V6 with VTEC variable valve timing. I mean, this car was light years ahead of everything else. Aluminum frame, aluminum body panels. Only 290 horsepower, which doesn't sound like a lot today, but these cars were so light, so nimble, and so much fun. And they really drove like a two-stroke because the VTEC would come on and it was like the turbo kicked in and it would just get going. So anyway, really pretty car, JP. We haven't covered one of these in a while. And this one, just like I said, to me, bright color, the right interior, all the right options, and low miles. It just seemed to tick all the boxes. So I thought it'd be fun to revisit the Acura NSX-T with a 6-speed manual and less than 40,000 miles. John, take it away. Our good friend has one, and I know you've driven it on probably a handful of occasions. So just from that one friend of yours alone, I know you've probably driven an NSX more than a half dozen times. I'm guessing with all the people you know in the car world, you've probably put, I'm guessing, a few miles on some of these, right? Haven't you?
I have been lucky enough to drive many of these on some really cool roads. Yeah, John Alcantara, shout out. He has a red one. He has an older one, but still just a fantastic car. Got to drive around the Red Rock Loop in anger. I was chasing him. He was in my 991.1S manual, so we had a really good time. Our friend here in Vegas has this exact car. He has a yellow, same year Targa. Way has one of these. I mean, I was like, is Way selling his car? If this were in Vegas, I would think it was his. And he has graciously offered me to drive his car so many times because every time I see it, I'm like, man, I love that thing. And he's just one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. And he's like, oh, man, you want to drive it? I'm like, yeah. What are we, I mean, when? He's like, right now. I'm like, yeah, but I know I'm an idiot for not just going, yeah, let's go drive it. Let's go. Because the only problem with driving one of these is it makes you want one. I mean, these are one of the best driving cars ever made. And, it was one of those cars that back in the 90s, it was like that car. I think I'd say this pretty much every time we talk about a darn NSX. All the assholes come out of the woodwork when it comes to, that guy that has never had a Porsche or any sports car ever. And they know that you know about Porsches. So they ask you all the Porsche questions, right? So you're just kind of going through and you tell them all about the Porsches and they're like, yeah, I need a Porsche. I'm going to get a Porsche. Then they show up in a freaking Acura. And so many times I saw people do that. And then, you drive an Acura and you're like, or you drive an NSX in particular, you're like, oh yeah, I guess this is one of the few cars I would actually take over maybe the same contemporary 911. But love these. And I think these are pretty strong in the market too. They don't come up for sale much. We see them pop up, but they usually have a gajillion miles. This one actually has decent miles on it and seems to be in excellent condition. I think the whole thing, the biggest knock against this one, and it's not a knock to me, but I think yellow has to be one of the all-time least popular colors for cars in general. So I think that's going to hurt this car ultimately. See? Even though I think it looks spectacular in yellow. What do you think this car will bring?
I will disagree with you on that. And I will I will agree that yellow is polarizing and might not be a lot of enthusiasts' first choice, but I feel like the run on paint to sample Porsches, and now we're seeing the same thing where, it used to be that if a Ferrari was any color other than red, it was unsellable. And now the vintage Ferraris in greens and yellows and blues are all bringing stupid money. I would feel, although I have not quantified this, we don't watch the Acura or the NSX market close enough, but I would think a bright yellow or an unusual color like yellow, while it might appeal to fewer buyers, you only need 2 people to like it, and they would pay a premium because this one looks different than all the others. And oh, by the way, it's super effing bright. Look at me, look at me, look at me. Anyway, JP, 1998 Acura NSX-T with a 6-speed manual showing just 37,000 miles on Bring a Trailer. Our car is in Oceanside, California, and has a full black Mike Myers ballsack leather equipped interior with the aforementioned.
It can't be ballsack if it's not like tan.
Oh, really? You're saying there's only one color of sack?
Even black sacks are kind of tannish. Let's be honest here. Not a lot of light gets down there.
Oh, we are off the rails. And moving on. Our car closes in 2 days and is currently at, JP, tell me if this is lucky, $77,777 on a whopping 6 bids. I think our car is going to do really well, JP. I don't think it'll quite double, but I think there's a lot of room left for this one. Despite it being yellow, I think the car will sell for $135,000. JP, what's your bid?
Wow, that's a big number. The nerd herd is all over the place, but very few people are much over 100, myself included. I think this car is great, and I will be bullish on this car because I think it's quite awesome. Look at that. Kevin's like, JP would know. I know a lot, man. Wait a minute. Yeah, I'm going to give it a number of, I'm going to go 110. I'm going to say it gets over 100, but not that much. And again, I think if it were white or black or a bunch of other colors, it would bring more, but I think yellow is gonna hurt it. Everyone in the nerd herd disagrees with me, but I think everyone's doing that whole thing. They're talking about the things that they like. Again, I'm saying I like this car, and I like this car in yellow. As someone who owned a banana hammock bright convertible yellow R8, I loved that car. Speed yellow is one of my favorite on certain cars, but I think it's pretty official that yellow is one of the least liked color. No, I want to say it was like in Jalopnik or something like that. Somebody did.
Yes, I remember. Yeah. I remember reading that article. I just don't know that I fully agree with it. The Ferrari guys have been paying money for yellow for years. That was like the one forgivable color, and then black maybe the second forgivable color for Ferrari. What's interesting, JP,
we keep talking about what we like, but they don't bring the money.
Yeah, JP, you said if it were white or black, it would bring more money. I will give you this. There is something magical about white NSXs because the Type R, whatever it was that Senna drove, was white. If this car were white, this would be a scary big number for it, given the low miles and the full black interior and being like the right year with the gearbox and the motor and all that. I actually think white is quantifiably like a premium color for the NSX, and it's because of all the Honda fanboys' love affair with Senna and white, the white color. Look at all your Integra Type R's in '98; they were only one color; they were white.
Yeah,
which is the same year as this car.
Yeah, in white. Yeah,
totally.
Yeah, but again, I love it in yellow.
Buddha wanted to remind you, JP, that his interior is not tan, which I thought was the most interesting argument that he could make, and then he added, it's not tan down there either. I love you, Buddha. So some of the bids, Buddha knows how to play it safe too. That was really good. Buddha got the point across without getting us banned from the FCC. 85,000 from Tom. I'm scrolling here. Max Lopez at 112. That's a good bid. He's right by you, JP. Michael S at 95. Randy B at 98. David V at 93. Anthony at 95. Myers at 90. It's interesting, JP. I brought your bid so high, you look like the high man in the nerd herd. George Condor at 109. Carbine at 94.8. Ross Churchout at 101, Scott at 92, Gerd at 88. I am way out on an island on my love affair for this NSX. I might die on that NSX hill. Kevin at 110, JP, you have a matching 110 and a 109. Otherwise, there's nobody above you but me. Ace at 105. I can't read that. Passbon Cajun. I'm sure I'm butchering how that's supposed to be read, but he's at 118,000. And I will say this: there's a lot of people watching the show. That's a lot of bids. We just got like more than a dozen bids out of the herd. Thank you guys for participating. John, that was fun. It'd be really interesting to see what happens here because the herd is very bearish on this car. My information is either stale or they don't know what I know, which it's probably not the case.
Well, let us know what you guys think in the comments below on this NSX. Is it going to bring the big 100,000 plus money? Is it a bull market on NSXs? Or is this thing going to fail to break 100? Let us know. And we got another car on the list. What do we got?
All right, JP. This is an interesting car, and let's see, how much time do we have? 7:30. All right, let's wrap this thing up. Yeah. All right, it's a 1995 Porsche 911 Carrera RS, and this car is an authentic club sport. Now, our car is listed by the Autosource Group out of Miami, Florida, and is showing 43,000 miles, listed as true mileage unknown. What's interesting about this car, JP, is that I bought this car for Godden's inventory back in 2019, and I bought it out of an auction in the UK. And at the time in 2019, our car was not yet 25 years old. Therefore, I could not bring it in on the 25-year exemption. And what's also interesting, JP, is that at that time, the Carrera RS Club Sport was not on the Department of Traffic, the DOT's show and display list. So after buying this car, like the headstrong, foolhardy, always rushing in person that I am, I had to pivot and then petition the Department of Traffic to add this car to the show and display list, where I could then bring it in on that exemption and get it into Nevada so that it could go into inventory at Godden Porsche while I was still there. And what's interesting is shortly after the car arrived, the car turned 25 years old. So I helped to create the show and display exemption for the Club Sport, the 993 RS Club Sport. And then I was likely the only person to ever use it because then the car became 25 years old and it would be eligible for the 25-year exemption anyway. But we couldn't leave the car in Europe because if it was there longer than 6 months, the car, we would, as the new owners of the car, be responsible for Europe's VAT tax, which is 17%, which would have torpedoed my purchase on the car. As it was, it cost me nearly 20 grand to bring it home because of paying for the exemption, paying for the importation, and the transport itself. So this car wound up costing me a little bit more money than we thought, but it almost cost me a lot more, and we would have been really torpedoed on it. But anyway, very special car. It was interesting to learn as the 95 and 96 993 RSs, Porsche made 1,100 of those things, of which only 227 were equipped with option package M003, which is the Club Sport. The Club Sport probably has a few more welds. It has even hard-mounted suspension that's fully adjustable. The cars had welded-in roll cages and the aero kit. The aero kit is interesting because in later RSs, the aero kit was optional. So a lot of people that got sort of Stradale or road versions of the RS, a lot of them would opt to get the aero kit from the Club Sport because it was so outlandish. I personally like the aero kit, but I know a lot of people that don't like it, and I understand that it's because it's so boisterous. I think it winds up just being polarizing. So it's very much a take it or leave it. And I get it if you don't like it. But if your car is a real Club Sport and you got that big wing and you're actually benefiting from the aero, it all starts to make sense. When our car arrived, JP, to Godden, we discovered that this car had truly been raced in period when it was new. The car had also been hit. You know, this car was not a virgin by any stretch of the imagination. And at that time, showing pretty much the exact same mileage it shows now, around 43,000 miles. The suspension on the car was completely worn out. We had hoped that Rami would take a serious interest in the car and look to buy it. And Rami came by to inspect the car and was considering it, but Rami had other things going on and couldn't at that time dedicate the money necessary to acquire the car. So he wound up passing on it. But at the time that Rami was looking at it, I wanted to make sure the car was as good as it could be. And I remember talking with Elephant Racing about redoing the entire suspension system for Rami if he would pay a retail number for the car. We were going to spend over $20,000 to redo the suspension with all new stuff, giving Rami a really, really fresh car. JP, I think you and I and both Rami and I took drives around the block in this car. And even with bald tires and worn out suspension, this car was more telepathic than any GT3 I had driven to date back in 2019, 2020, when this car was at Gotten Porsche. The car has since traded hands a couple of times. The current owner or one of the previous owners claims to have spent a lot of money freshening the suspension. They claim to have over $30,000 in receipts that they spent on the doing a paint correction on the car and refreshing the suspension and the tires and all the things that we were promising to do for Rami. It looks like somebody else did in anticipation of selling this car and achieving a retail number. So John, even though I only have a few short minutes behind the wheel of this car, sometimes when you drive a car that is so beyond what you imagine it could be, it leaves an imprint on you that kind of ruins it for you. Like, I really want to buy a regular 993 C2, but I'll always feel like I'm dating the ugly sister of the hot girl at school, because you know that there's one in the family that's even better. And this is that car, literally, because it's this VIN number, this actual car. This thing is unreal. I didn't know when Porsche throws Weissach at their car to prepare it for their racing customers to go and campaign and carry the banner for Porsche. It's amazing to see what is capable. And this car is truly a race car, because I didn't imagine in a million years. I thought that GT3 was the pinnacle of their achievement. I didn't realize that, 20 years earlier, they had made a car that was air cooled, that was actually even better, because this car really only belongs on the track. It is so firm. You have to climb over the roll cage and down into a race seat and put a racing harness on. And the suspension feels like it has no rubber in it at all. But the steering on this is so fast and so precise and so insanely good. I'm ruined. Like any 993 would be second best because this car is so good. It's purely a track toy, or maybe you would drive it on a rally. But other than that, you would never drive down to go get groceries in this car. It's just not that. It is too sharp a blade, and it's such a beautiful car, and it's the actual one that I imported. So I feel very connected to this car. Did you, JP, get to go around the block with me, or did you ever get to drive this car yourself? I just don't remember, because it was a few years ago now.
Yeah, I never got to drive this one, but I did go around the block in this car. And let me just tell you guys out there, if you're thinking about bidding on this car, don't. You do not want this car, because my friend and partner, Michael Deeb, the car hadn't been driven in like a day. It was totally cold. We get in, we're buckling in. He starts the thing, puts it in gear, and takes off like down the road. Like, this thing is like, you could put your ball sack on the exhaust of this car and it would not burn it. It was so cold, and he didn't warm it up at all. I mean, you took off down the road. I'm like going, dude, you got to let it like warm up a little bit. And he's like, man, we're just, and dude, it was awesome. This car is so goddamn fantastic.
But in my defense, the ambient temperature in Vegas is 113 degrees. So it was warm.
It was November. No, I don't know I can't remember what
it was indoors. Yeah. It would have been 80, but yeah, that sounds like something.
It was just like,
I'm an irresponsible.
Just, like, did not care. This is a $500,000 car, super priceless car. Just drive the hell out of it. Who cares? Don't buy a car that Deeb owned because he doesn't warm up his engine.
Yeah, that's for sure.
All right, no, these are fantastic. They are one of the best cars, and you're absolutely right when it comes to This car will ruin all other cars for you. Just taking that little ride around the block with Deeb was something special, and not a lot of people get to do. I am very fortunate to have a very good friend of mine who has a regular 993 RS, not the Club Sport,
but with the aero package.
But his has the aero package, and it has the same engine, the 3.8 and everything like that. And let me tell you, there is no better car. There's never been a car made better than that thing, and I don't know if there ever will. I've driven faster stuff. I've driven cars that probably by the numbers do everything better, but that car is like, if they made a GT3, an air-cooled GT3, that's what you would think it. I mean, that they should just put that badge on it. It's like they just didn't invent the letters yet back then. Driving that car in anger, and I've been blessed to be able to drive a 993 RS on an amazing road for hours, and it's just burned into everything about me. Our good friend Mikey P, who we all know on the show. A good friend of ours, friend of the, he works over at God and Porsche. He's been able to drive it, and it's like everyone who's been able to get behind the wheel of that thing is just like, okay, it's not going to get better than this. Anything that was the pinnacle of your driving experience is being behind the wheel of one of those. You're not ever going to drive anything better unless you drive another one. It pisses me off, frankly, that Porsche didn't put the 3.8 in all the damn 993s. Why did they give us that damn anemic 3.6 when they had this engine? It would have been just a little bit more money. Oh my God. And it makes all the difference in the world. It makes me want to take my 964 and have it, have that engine rebuilt and made into a 3.8. I want one of these so bad. I don't know if I want this one. I don't really want a Club Sport. I would rather have a regular, Carrera RS. Or at least I'd rather have a regular Carrera RS first and then add one of these to the garage if you have that kind of budget. But,
they cut the dash 5% on the far right corner and 5% on the far left corner. And I'm telling you, they cut it with like a sawzall.
Yeah.
And you can see the cork, the raw cork from the cut. Like, it's not finished. They just cut it so that the dash will fit in where they welded in the roll cage for it to be a Club Sport. These cars are crude, but they're crude because they're only meant to do closed course professional driver laps. And that's what this car is designed for. And man, I'm telling you, just whipping it around the block, you're like, holy God, this car is insane. I can only imagine what it feels like when you're really flirting with the limit, threshold braking, and just wringing its neck on a racetrack. The few that are fortunate enough to own or spend time like you have behind the wheel, I consider the lucky. I agree with you, JP. Make mine a standard road going one. This is too much because it's uncomfortable. So it's only good when you're at 10 tenths. And then it's great. There's nothing better. But for the rest of the time, I think you'd be bored. Well, not bored, but uncomfortable. So JP, should we jump to the numbers?
Yep, let's get to it. What do we think this is going to bring?
Our car closes in 4 days, and it's currently at $195,000, and it's just on 7 bids. So here's the thing, JP. I think a really nice Club Sport is over $400,000, maybe even $450,000. But this particular one, we know has raced in period. So if I could figure that out, I feel like anybody else who's seriously considering spending, over $250,000 on a car would also do that kind of research, because I think it takes a particular type of buyer to look into it. And so I feel like if we found out that it's been raced and wrecked, that somebody else could figure out that it's been raced and wrecked. And as such, then I think this one, it's hit high, it's hit deep, but it stays in the park. I think this will land inside of $400,000. So I'll give you $379,000 as my bid. Similar to my RS America bid, I'm going to go just under the 80 mark. So $379,000 where I believe it will sell. And I think it's worth it at that price. If it were nicer, lower miles, and not all banged up or completely raced out, I'd say it's well over $400,000. But I think this is one of the rougher ones. It's a total driver. Like, if you planning to buy one and park it at the track and just use it, this is your car. And I think you should be able to buy that car for somewhat of a savings. And that savings translates to $379,000 in my opinion. JP, where are you at?
What was my bid on the 964 RSA?
You went $179,640.
I'll do the same thing. Only $379, $640.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Or
you're going to take the over.
964s, yeah.
I got you. Yeah. I got you. All right. We're there.
Yeah,
We're there,
I think
dude.
this
That's a
car
show.
is an amazing car. All right, what do you guys think this Club Sport will bring? Will it get up to 4? I am bullish on the RSs, like I said at the beginning of the show, and I want to see those numbers happen, although I do kind of like the idea of the prices going down a little bit so I could get one, but that's probably not going to happen anytime soon. All right, who's going to Air and Water next weekend? This guy, and I know that guy. I'm trying to
Sahan.
Sahan's going. Michael Myers is going. I know Anthony's coming down. I know Randy is coming. We've got Jason Alter. We got Chef. Rami is coming out.
We reserved a room for Yuri today. Yuri's gonna go.
Sweet. All right. This is going to be a great weekend. Rami's bringing the roof. He's actually driving it. He's not trailering it. Exactly. God. That's going to be bonkers, man.
Yep.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun weekend. So lots going on.
What's the name of the restaurant that Bidners and Auto Fest?
We're having a Friday night Bid Nerds Vegas Auto Fest dinner that you guys are invited to. Just reach out to us, just DM us, and we'll get you in. Yep. But I don't know where it's at. I can't remember the name of the place, but it's like it's some barbecue joint in Long Beach.
But it's nice. It's not like a joint though. It's like a nice restaurant. It's not a joint. It's a proper restaurant. Yeah, this is going to be fun. I imagine they make good cocktails, and we're going to be there with bells on. So please come and join us. I know you'll if you're going to be in LA for this weekend, you'll be invited to a bunch of stuff. But if you're a fan of the show, you won't want to miss hanging out with us in in Long Beach the night before the Costa Mesa show, which is just about 25 minutes up the highway from Costa Mesa. So please budget the time to come and hang out with us. Let us buy you a plate of food and have a hug. It'll be great times.
Randy B's like, do it Saturday, but it's Rami's birthday on Saturday, so we got a private event going on for Rami's birthday that's going to be awesome as well. This is going to be a tough weekend to get through. My
liver.
Yeah, I'm thinking the morning of Luft when we're rolling in there to park our cars is going to be just like mainline. Like we're going to have to IV feed the coffee, and it's just going to be I can already feel how horrible that's going to be driving up the coast down the coast to the place.
Let's talk about the herd here. So Chris Carbine is saying no car to drive yet for Carbine. JP shops for cars in all markets at all times. Carbine, what car do you need for inventory? JP will find it for you on Craigslist. You can buy it there, drive it around, and then ship it home. It sounds like Kevin says I might have a car. He might join us. I'm hoping Kevin will be there. And then Carbine gets the poop car. What's the poop car, David? What's that?
Well, that's not very nice, David. What's a poop car? Spud Syndicate is bringing a crew. That's going to be. You guys need to have shirts or something like that.
I know, right? Yeah.
Are we going to rock the Bid Nerds Do or Die workshop jackets again? I think we should probably do that. I'll bring them.
Let me know. Yeah.
Do you have yours, or is it?
Yeah,
you have yours. Okay, good. All right.
Yeah, it's right in that. It's in the closet in this room. I can bring it, and that way, if I have to get out on my knees in the dark and cut the AC belt on my car, I can use it as a mat so I don't step on any scorpions.
Nice. Okay, I guess David Van is getting Carbine and Ultima on spinners. That's very exciting. That's
nice.
That'll be a good look. All right, we're going to call it a show, guys. Thanks for hanging out. As always, we love the Nerd Herd. Thanks. Shout out to Godden Classic and Godden Porsche of Las Vegas. Shout out to Our Smiths. And we are going to see you Sunday night. Like I said, we have some big guests coming up on the next couple of episodes. So make sure you tune in. If you haven't hit the like button yet, please do so now. Does it give us a little thumbs up thing? Like the heart deal? I know it does the heart thing, but it should do a thumbs up. It doesn't work on mine. So do those things, and we will see you on the next Try a thumbs up. Does the thumbs up work on yours? Go higher. Yeah, there you go.
Oh,
see?
there it is. Yeah.
The thumbs up thing works on yours. I don't know why it doesn't work on mine. See you next time, guys. Bye. I'm trying to hit the end.
Get those nerds!